are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
All right, welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. So we're getting ready for New Year's Eve, but I don't want to spend a lot of money, and I'm sure as hell not going to spend $120,000. Did you guys hear about this in New York? The Knickerbocker Hotel has a $120,000, I thought it was $125,000, but apparently it's a $120,000 New Year's Eve package. Now, the Knickerbocker Hotel, very, very cool, historical landmark. I think it was built in 1906. But apparently, for those of you who want to celebrate New Year's Eve, there is an exclusive front row view of the Times Square ball drop for $120,000. Well, the package includes a few things. You get a hotel stay, so I believe you get to stay 3 nights. You get the views of Times Square, the city skyline. It is I think it's a suite. It better be a suite. You get to see the ball drop. There's bottle service. So you get champagne, cocktails, other refreshments. The cork gets dropped like they do it like fancy style. It also includes a multi-course gourmet dinner at Charlie Palmer's Steak, the 4. I have never been there. I've heard of Charlie Palmer, but anyway, they got steaks and seafood and yummy stuff. Also, you get $25,000 shopping credit at Nordstrom's New York City flagship store. According to Travel and Tour World, you'll be treated to a personal shopping experience, selected high-end fashion accessories, and other luxury goods, so you have a New Year's Eve outfit. You need to be able to be dressed in style. So they're basically feeding you, getting you drunk, giving you a good view, and dressing you. And so, it's interesting because I think there's going to be some people that are going to be paying for this. It also allows you to have private styling services, a champagne ceremony. I think you also get New Year's Day lunch at Ioka Sushi Restaurant. And then there is other, pampering things. I think there's like massages and things like that. So anyway, fancy, still $120,000, too rich for my blood. I wouldn't even spend $2,000. It's interesting. The whole, excitement around New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve is great. And I love celebrating. I love watching the fireworks, and I love being up till midnight and celebrating and, toasting and kissing and it's fun. But I think we've really increased the hype like we've done with a lot of things, like Valentine's. Easter, such a solemn holiday. Christmas, even solemn. Now, I don't mind all the lights and but I tell you, when marketing and corporations realize they can make some money, they know how to jump on that. And I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. And gosh, the prices of some of these hotels so that you could be on the strip and have a view and all that. And I understand. It costs money. There's a premium. If the room was only $99, they would be sold out last year. I get that. But it's just, is it really worth the money? And what's really interesting is I notice a lot of people, I'm Gen X, so middle age. A lot of people my age are starting to celebrate the New York ball drop, like the New York, shall we say, the 9 p.m. I live in West Coast, so they're celebrating the 9 p.m. or the New York New Year's as opposed to waiting for West Coast. And I hate to say this, this year, I might actually do the same thing. I have always celebrated New Year's Eve and been up till midnight, and I don't get tired. I could party all night long, but I work the next morning, and I am working pretty early on New Year's Day. And so part of me is thinking, look, how does my body know if it's midnight or 9 p.m.? We're going to celebrate New Year's. We're going to do the countdown. We're going to kiss. And then I could go to bed at a decent time. And I know it's not the same. But look, I mean, we watch Australia and Sydney celebrate it first. I think they're one of the first countries where we see all the fireworks and all that. And they seem to be, they're celebrating. It's New Year's somewhere. I don't know. I think we kind of celebrate a little too much. As I've told you guys before, you definitely want to watch your drunk buddies, because they might have hypothermia and they are actually drunk, or they might actually have alcohol intoxication and hypothermia. It's not the safest holiday. I really don't recommend people being out there in freezing cold weather drinking. And another issue that I'm starting to, in my Gen X years of age, I'm not going to tell you how old I am. I'm sure you guys can figure it out. But I need to pee. And one thing that I notice is really, really frustrating is you can't pee easily. In fact, I think last year they were talking about how people were peeing on the streets in New York City because there weren't enough porta potties, or because they didn't want porta potties in the view of the cameras, there weren't any for blocks. Well, that's a problem. And in New York, I've tried it. You can't just walk into any place and pee. If there's going to be hundreds of thousands of people on the streets in Times Square, trust me, those businesses are not going to want you to come and use their bathroom. They aren't going to want their store looted and all that. So you have to hold it or get a UTI. In the Las Vegas Strip, I believe you have to enter early, and then they allow no traffic, and you either have to bus in or park or walk in, and then I think it's limited on when you could leave. Not a lot of places to go to the bathroom. You're going to have to use porta potties. To me, that's not fun. I get all anxious about having to go to the bathroom, But look, let's say you do want to spend money, not 120 grand, but let's say you do want to have a nice dinner, have that. I get it. There's one thing that I make the mistake of that I don't want you all to do is I don't celebrate things as much as I should because I'm always working. So if you want to have a special night, a romantic night, and you want to really celebrate it, do so. It's a great year. 2025, whew. A lot happened this year, good and bad. And so starting the new year, why not celebrate? So happy new year. We got a busy show. Don't go away. 1-877 Dr. Dolly. All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel and Jason for producing, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So many of you heard that the super flu is rising across the United States and taking us by storm. I'm going to tell you, I worked all throughout the Christmas holiday. Tons of flu. A lot of flu. And flu A and flu B. And there's also the subclade K, which is a variant of influenza A, H3N2, that is being nicknamed superflu, being more severe and taking longer to recover. And so we just want to make you all aware. Many of you are asking me, did the flu shot work? Did it? So this is what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing. And now again, we don't have the data on how effective the flu shot is because we have to wait until after the flu season. But from what I'm understanding is many people who did get the flu shot have so far been so good, knock on wood. However, I have had some patients who did get the flu shot that did come down with flu. I can't tell you how severe they are because I don't get to see them if they go into the hospital. They won't necessarily call the telemedicine company and tell them. But we have had some people that got vaccinated still come down with the flu. The whole purpose of the vaccine is to minimize the severity of it and to hopefully prevent you from getting it at all. But if it can minimize the severity, that's still a plus. So I'm a fan of the flu shot, but I understand that a lot of people are vaccinated out. and sick of vaccines after the whole COVID debacle and the mandate. But if you do not want to get flu and you're immunocompromised and you are worried that you might be hospitalized, you want to protect yourself. So what are the symptoms of super flu? Well, symptoms of flu are fever, usually high fever, body aches, extreme fatigue. You might have a cough, sore throat, really, really bad headache. I'm hearing people are waking up with a horrible, horrible headache, sinuses, cough. But interestingly, I've had some people test positive for flu with no fever. I've also had some of them only have vomiting and diarrhea. Now, norovirus or the stomach flu won't trigger a flu A or B at-home test. So understand that even if you don't have the super high fever and the really bad cough and the bad headache, you could still have flu. Now, what's nice is we have these at-home flu tests or these over-the-counter flu tests. These over-the-counter flu and COVID tests are fantastic. I understand they're a little costly. But I got to tell you, if you have, it's better to see a doctor in person. But if your copay is really high and you're early on in your symptoms and you test positive, you can at least call a telemedicine company and get started on a medication, which saves you money. But I tell everybody, if you're diagnosed with the flu, we still want you examined. Because flu itself might not kill, but the secondary issues that can come with it, like a respiratory distress or a pneumonia or a cardiac issue or a stroke or Guillain-Barré, where your immune system attacks your spinal cord, your brain and spinal cord, those things are significant. So we still want to make sure you get seen. What I'm seeing and what I saw all throughout Christmas week was patients were having a really, really severe cough. One told me earlier today that she felt like she was drowning in her lungs. Well, that sounds familiar, right? That sounds like what we saw with COVID, where people had that cytokine storm and their lungs filled up with fluid. And so if that's the case, don't be treating yourself at home. You might need breathing treatments. You might need a chest x-ray. You might also need an antibiotic. We have had some patients that tested for both COVID and flu, so they might need to be treated for both. So I don't want to scare you all, but flu is not mild this year, and we are seeing hospitalizations rise. Now, what do we have to treat it? Well, we got some great medications. We got Tamiflu, we got Xofluza, we got Relenza, Rapivab. These are medications that you have to, though, take early on. And so you need to take these within 48 hours of your initial symptoms. Now, we're having some people fudge. And so I had one person call, they were day 4, and they go, yeah, I think I have flu. I haven't tested yet. I want flu medication. We had to tell them, sorry, if it's after the 48 hours, we're not supposed to give it. And then she calls back saying, oh, yeah, my flu actually started 2 days ago. Well, but she tested and she tested positive. And so, we worked with her. But your symptoms have to be, and the reason why is it's not that we're trying to save it. It's that the reason why you have those symptoms, just like with COVID, why did COVID in and of itself, could invade the cells and start acting up, but it's your immune system response. And your immune system and how your immune system responds to it is going to be a lot more dramatic the more virus in your body. So we need to attack it early on. When people were asking about ivermectin and its use with COVID, or hydroxychloroquine, the studies showing efficacy showed the efficacy more early on. But once you went into cytokine storm and you had the inflammatory fluid building up in your lungs, that ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine couldn't help treat. So we always want to get to the virus before it takes over a lot of cells. Because how do these viruses survive? Well, they invade the cell. They make the cell make more virus. They make the cell then pop. Well, the cell ends up dying anyway. And then all those little baby viruses go and find new cells to jump on and make them turn into a flu-making machine. Now, that's how you can tell flu from, a bacterial infection. Bacteria, they have to divide and multiply, and there's a linear or and sometimes an exponential progression, but there's a progression to that. Whereas with flu, it's hugely exponential because you go from 1 to thousands. And so when your body picks that up, it starts to react. So you need to start your medication sooner than later. Now, one thing that many people are doing is getting on the flu medication before they have flu. If there is a confirmed case in your family, it has to be confirmed. It can't be, you know what, I think they have flu. It has to be confirmed and tested. You can often get then Tamiflu or Zofluza preventatively. Now, the only issue with that is we're starting to get kind of short on some pharmacies are reporting a shortage of the medication. We had one patient call in saying, yeah, my husband has flu. I said, was it confirmed? She's like, no, but I know it's flu. I said, will you go get tested? She tested, uploaded the picture. She didn't have flu. So we really need to know what you have, and we really need to verify, because the urgent cares will verify. And so telemedicine, it's a little trickier. Some doctors are like, fine, if you're telling me it's flu, well, you have it. But the majority of doctors are like, look, we're running out. We're running low. We need to know what you have, especially because if you have COVID and not flu, your symptoms can go on for weeks. So we really want to make sure you're getting on the right antiviral. But if you are exposed to flu, you definitely want to reach out to a medical provider and try to get medication before you become sick with flu. You also want to make sure you're not immunocompromised. So you want to keep your fluids up. You want to get your vegetables in. You want to sleep well, wash your hands, avoid others who are sick. Many of you got off a plane the other day, and so somebody was coughing behind. It's just be prepared. And if it does happen, thank God, we have other ways for you to access care if your primary care doctor is on vacation or your primary care provider. There's telemedicine, there's urgent cares. But if at all you're having difficulty breathing, if you're having chest pain, severe cough, dizziness, lightheadedness, you got to get to an ER. That could mean you're already having severe symptoms. According to the CDC and News Nation, the country's hospitalization rate went up by 14.3%, and that's because of superflu. And outbreaks have already took hold in New York, Louisiana, Colorado. We're being told from News Nation that Manhattan had a 104% spike in cases earlier this month. Flu peaks December and January. So we're coming into peak flu season. Then some of you will ask, well, is it too late to get a flu shot? No, it's not too late. Flu season can go all the way till May. And so it usually takes about 2 weeks for that flu shot to kick in, but the sooner the better. We don't like to give it to you when you're actively sick, but if you are immunocompetent and have a healthy immune system, or if you're immunocompromised and not actively like in the hospital, we'll recommend the flu shot. So talk to your local pharmacy about getting that done. And then, like I said, watch for symptoms: cough, congestion, fever. Some people are not having a fever. Some people actually are having loss of taste and smell, but testing negative for COVID, but positive for flu. So understand that can happen. Do not ask for antibiotics for the flu. All right. If you test positive and have a bacterial infection or have like a bacterial pneumonia, you might get antibiotics. But if you're having a sore throat from the flu and you don't have strep, you don't want to be taking antibiotics. You'd rather take an antiviral. But you need to get this addressed and early on. All right, I hope that answers some of your questions. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
All right, we are back on Dr. Dolly's show, 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So if there was ever a question about something, and if a patient asked, why are we doing this? Or if a parent asked, why are we doing this? RFK Jr. wants to answer the question and take a look at why are we doing it. And so one concern parents have are the amount, or the concern is the amount of vaccines, and the vaccines are plural. Sorry if I'm messing up my plural and singular these days, but singular. But RFK Jr. wants to look at all the vaccines kids are getting, and are they necessary? Are they related to chronic disease? Are they helping stop chronic disease? And so one, I guess, country that doesn't seem to vaccinate as much as we do is Denmark. And I guess President Trump issued a memorandum directing Kennedy, RFK Jr., and the acting director of the CDC to align the U.S. with best practices on child vaccine recommendations from peer nations, including looking at what Denmark does. Denmark vaccinates for fewer diseases than the U.S. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, but wait a second, we're different from Denmark. Denmark has, 6 million people? We have 350 million people. But it's interesting because Denmark recommends routinely vaccinating all children against 10 diseases. The U.S., I think, has 16 or 17. And the more we learn and the more we develop, the more we go, wait a second, we could also vaccinate for this. We could vaccinate for rotavirus. We could vaccinate for chickenpox. We could vaccinate for, so I think Denmark vaccinates for DTaP, diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis. They vaccinate for polio, Hib, pneumococcal, MMR, and they do the HPV vaccines. But they don't vaccinate for varicella, for chickenpox. They don't vaccinate for meningococcal meningitis. bacteria. They don't vaccinate for Hep B. They don't vaccinate for rotavirus. They don't vaccinate for hepatitis A. And so there's been some questions as to, should we consider what other countries are doing? Is Denmark healthier than America or less healthy? So, it's a little tricky to answer because, like I said, Denmark doesn't have the situation that we do. I mean, when Biden had our open borders, and boy, was that a cluster at a seventh, I was concerned that we might have to consider vaccinating against TB because we started to see cases of TB in Arizona rise and in places where there were a lot of migrants who might have brought that from other countries. And in fact, I think Alejandro Mayorkas even said that 2 of every 5, I forget the number, I think it was 2 in 5 or 3 in 5 migrants had an infectious disease, whether it was hepatitis, whether it was cholera, whether it was TB. And so if we're not protected against that, I mean, Denmark's immigration policy, my guess, was a lot more strict. But if we have open borders, like we did during the Biden years, we might have needed more protection. Now, as a parent and as a doctor, I have seen the pros and cons. I had a relative who died of tetanus. I've seen what chickenpox can do to somebody who's immunocompromised. I took care of kids in the ICU who had chickenpox that were all up and down their esophagus. And these diseases could be bad. But where the question lies is, does everybody need the vaccine? Now, RFK Jr. had said we don't have to vaccinate everybody for COVID. I agree. We should have it there if you want the COVID vaccine. It's there. Polio, we should vaccinate everybody for polio. Polio scares the hell out of me. And with all the cuts and nicks and scrapes we get with tetanus, yeah. But in terms of COVID, you have a healthy infant. Does a healthy 6-month-old need a COVID vaccine? I'd like to study it more. I want to make sure that vaccine isn't interfering with the other vaccines in terms of immunity. But, if a doctor thinks that child is immunocompromised, they could order the vaccine. But does it have to be recommended? Same thing with Denmark. If people in Denmark want the COVID vaccine, they could get it. But it's just not universally recommended. Now, the reason why we in America do universal recommendations is because we want to get herd immunity. Herd immunity comes from, you got a herd, you got the little babies, and then you got the big mommies and daddies in the herd. And if the little babies are in the center and the mommies and daddies are surrounding them, they could deflect diseases or bad things coming to the babies. Well, that's how herd immunity is. If you have individuals who can't vaccinate or where the vaccine won't work, if everybody else is deflecting the disease and there's no place for that virus to take hold because everybody else is vaccinated, they call that herd immunity. Now, when they said the COVID vaccine had to be universal for herd immunity, I'm like, no, it's not going to work. You're not going to get herd immunity because one of the big cows is going to, even though they're vaccinated, still get COVID, turn around and cough on the baby. And people might think that they're more protected when they aren't. I want people to have protection by a vaccine if they want it. But the idea that, well, now you're not going to get COVID and you're completely in the clear and you're not going to spread it, that was a lie. And I knew that, but they were pushing false science. And I had said, look, you guys keep this up. Parents are going to say, you know what? I'm done with all vaccines. And I love our vaccine regimen. We got a lot of good ones. But do all of them need to be universally recommended? So hepatitis has been talked about in the news, the hepatitis B vaccine. The hepatitis B vaccine is given day 1 of birth, day 1 after birth, at the 1 to 2 month mark, and then at the 6 month mark. Well, a lot of parents are like, my baby's only hours old. Do I really need to inject him? Well, if the child comes from a parent who has hepatitis, we do want to protect that child right away. But do they really need it at the day-old mark? I think hepatitis is scary, and I think we should have protection. But does it have to be universally with a 1-day-old? So I like that RFK Jr. was looking into this. It's just, I don't know if we have, the same sort of, I know we don't have the same population makeup as Denmark. But my concern is we might actually need to consider vaccinating for tuberculosis. If Trump, let's say, leaves office later, at the next election, and we don't maintain a secure border, and we have what Biden did, we're going to see more TB cases rise. And with that case, we are going to need to protect our population. But, as far as I'm concerned, we should have all vaccines available for parents. And there are some vaccines that should be universal. I agree. I don't want to see MMR come back. I don't want to see tetanus, people getting tetanus. I don't want to see people getting polio. I'm glad we have the chickenpox vaccine. That has really limited a lot of morbidity and mortality with that. But it's a lot of vaccines. And I also want to see a study and make sure that none of any side effects are being transparent to parents. They can make a choice, and that we are being transparent and open about potential issues that could happen if somebody, let's say, doesn't respond like the majority to a vaccine. And if RFK Jr. is expanding our knowledge and expanding our education on that subject, all the power to him. I think we do need to look at that. I do not want false narratives that a vaccine is causing autism when we have studies saying the vaccine doesn't. But if we do have evidence that some people are getting a neurological issue that might mimic autism as one of the side effects, a very rare side effect, that has to be out there for us to investigate and study. So we need to look at the science. We need to understand that it's evolving, but we also need to protect our kids. So we need to have a good, robust vaccination program, but we also need to revisit it and make sure we're doing the best practices possible. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Back on Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. The risks were far worse than the benefits, but unfortunately nobody listened. And throughout COVID and all these decisions that were made that didn't make a lot of sense to me, when I would speak out, nobody listened. Or they accused me of being one political side or another. And, why didn't you listen to us, doctors? We could have told you that you were making some big mistakes. Well, finally, study has come out saying that the risks far exceeded the benefits when it came to kids' mental health. And they saw that their mental health improved when California schools reopened in 2021. Now, these prolonged school closures, I mean, anybody could tell you that was a problem. But some of these states, like California, were so strict. Yet Florida reopened, and when you looked at the incidence of COVID and hospitalizations and deaths, studies have shown there was pretty comparable from, whether you locked down or not. And so when data was coming out, nobody wanted to listen to that. And we're looking at these kids, and I'm like, it's going to take years, if that, to recover. And many kids still haven't recovered. Well, the New York Times reported the findings. They said that the research tracked 185,000 privately insured children aged 5 to 18 across the months before and after reopening. This was published in the journal Epidemiology. And the study found that 9 months after in-person learning resumed, the likelihood a child would be seen for a mental health condition dropped by 43%. Spending on mental health medications fell 7.5%. Costs for therapy and similar services decreased by 10.6%. Harvard social epidemiologist Rita Hamad Study co-author told the New York Times that the data showed officials focused so heavily on transmission risk that they failed to fully consider the social costs. She suggested reopening decisions may have been different had this evidence existed earlier. Okay, guys, we were looking at the evidence here and now. There, you could have easily done a study. You could have taken a look at the kids who were out of school March 18th or whenever the lockdown happened. Look at them over the 6 weeks. By the summer, you could have accrued the data. Was depression going up? Was anxiety going up? Was the need for medications going up? There's your proof. Were suicides up? Was suicidal ideation up? Was isolation up? Did their diets change? You would have had the data June of 2020. So for those of us saying reopen, nope, nobody listened. And so, Seattle, 7:70 a.m., reports this. They say for families in Washington state where many public school students stayed remote until fall 2021, the findings mirror what local parents, teachers, and clinicians had reported for years. Counselors in Seattle, Bellevue, Tacoma all noted steep rises in anxiety and depression during the shutdown era, particularly among girls, a trend the California researchers also observed. So some experts told the New York Times they believe easing safety restrictions or diminishing fear of infection contributed to the improvement. University of Oregon economist Benjamin Hansen noted that the lag, most gains appeared 6 to 9 months after reopening, but agreed in-person schooling generally benefits children. So here's the thing. As a doctor, I get COVID was scary. We weren't getting any information from China. We assumed it was in America November of 2019 because we were having people test negative for flu, but they were really getting sick. And then by January, it was starting to overwhelm the hospitals. And that's peak flu season. But it wasn't a bacterial pneumonia. It appeared to be a viral pneumonia. And then people would go into a cytokine storm. Things were scary. But what I had said is for those of us who were business owners, for those of us with kids at school, many of us were going to take a week or two to reevaluate the situation. Right? People were losing their family members. Right? People didn't know what to do. Let's get a grip. And I remember I was going to tell my the schools closed first. So I was going to tell the staff, look, stay home with the kids. Okay. We'll revisit this in a week or two. See what's going on with the kids. See what's going on with the schools. And then what's the best way to proceed? Well, the best way to proceed was N95 masks, having screening tests available, increasing people's health, get them outside. I mean, California was arresting somebody for paddleboarding and hiking. Let them play outside, get some sun, get some, work on their health. And then we're going to brace for this. But, the isolation is a very important piece of this, but it's not working. And then a study, one of the first studies came out of, I think, New York, where people who were healthy that were told to sit home and isolate got sick and got sick faster than people who were the essential workers out and about. And they were like, they're sitting ducks. You're forcing people to be in a closed room. They're getting sick. So we were already getting data by March and April. And I was talking about it on air going, wait a second. They're saying people being sent home that are healthy are getting sick at home. So, we might not have to close down because they're getting sick at home. And then look at what happened when Andrew Cuomo, sent nursing home patients back to the nursing home. Those people who were isolated in the nursing home ended up getting sick. And so we identified early on that it looks like this is going to come no matter what you do, whether you're home or not. Social distancing, the 6 feet isn't enough. How long can you live in a bubble? And then is that hurting your immune system in other ways? So let's distance to a degree. Let's get N95 respirating masks, which I believe Trump started to have in up the production of in January and February. Let's get the N95 masks, not these stupid masks, to offer protection. Let's still give kids access to school, even if it's not a full day. But instead, this went on for a year or two. In fact, medical students were telling me that other medical schools were open and students were back, but they were still remote. And they're like, but I'm not at the hospital. I'm not learning. And I'm like, it's been a year. It's been a year with COVID. You're still not back learning? And I think some of these schools took advantage of the situation. And then there were all these dancing videos where some of the teachers were dancing. Now, I get, if you're a teacher and you don't want to get exposed and you don't want to bring it home, I get that. Okay? Then, there were people that really wanted to get back to work. So then it's train and hire people. And we could have done a different model of school, but get these kids back with other kids. But people were scared. And I get people were scared. It's just once we started getting to the summer and we were starting to get a grip and understanding, schools weren't reopening in September. Some did across the country, but not everybody. And it was just, people took, because when people liked it. I remember hearing people say, oh, I love this. Thank God for COVID. When I hear somebody say, thank God for COVID, because now I don't have to go into work. I'm like, are you kidding me? COVID killed people. But so now everybody's going back and forth saying, well, don't say I told you so, or, maybe say I told you so. The problem with the I told you so is people want to say I told you so because they're hoping that the next time this happens, they'll listen to you. This is why in marriage, you hear the wife go, I told you so. I was right. Men do this too. And why are they doing that? Are they doing it to brag, or are they doing it because they're frustrated that you didn't take their advice the first time? And it's annoying to say I told you so, but you want to establish now a precedent that what comes out of my mouth isn't always wrong. I'm not always wrong. I'm sometimes right. I was right about this when you thought I was wrong. So will you please listen to me next time? Thing is I don't think the government's going to listen. I think if they have the opportunity to lock things down again, and I get it, if Ebola comes, we're locking down. Ebola is some scary stuff. But we aren't going to have to lock down for 2 years. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away. Hey guys, it's Dr. Dahlia. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hotshot Secret, powered by science.
Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.